Static's back, Necromaniacs. I took a week off to enjoy the 4th of July holiday, but now I'm back. We're kind of coming out of the COVID-19 quarantine stuff here for my work, so I am much more busy and not able to stay home and make videos about Games Workshop games as much as I used to be, so I apologize for the slight slowdown, but I will be trying to put out a video every week from now on. So, to get back into our game, let's start with some Necromunda lore. No, just kidding. This is a tactics channel. We don't do lore, we talk tactics. So let's talk about skills. First skill that we want to go over is we'll start from the A's and go with agility. Agility are going to be your movement scores, and movement is king. It always is in every tabletop game. If you can't move into a position to shoot at, make a charge at, attack your foe, and kind of have the initiative there to where you're able to get the shot off first or the charge off first, most of the time you're in the position to lose. So it is super important to set yourself up for success, and you do that through movement. And sometimes new players don't quite see how important that movement is. Now, let's go over some of the agility abilities, because most of them are movement based, I guess is the best way to put it. First, you have Catfall. When a fighter falls or jumps down from a ledge, they count the vertical distance moved as being half of what it actually is, rounded up. In addition, if they're not seriously injured after that, or taken out of action by the fall, make an initiative test for them. If it's passed, they remain standing rather than the prone and pinned. I don't love this one because I guess the best part is the halving of the distance. That can make it less lethal, but even that is not great. You could still take a decent hit just falling 6 inches instead of 12. So I don't love this ability because of that. So I would not love to plan on falling, and I wouldn't use it as a tactic, definitely, especially if it's going to end me up prone or seriously injured on the ground, so I can just get coup de grace whenever the guy I was going to go after that was further down. I was going to jump down and do something snazzy to him. Instead, I fall, get seriously injured, and he walks up and coup de grace me. No thanks. So I really, right now, that's what we're doing. Okay. Anyways, let's get back to it. Let's not break for that. I'm gonna kind of rank these as a good, okay, and bad. I'm trying to keep these all in the same area here. So Catfall is gonna go in the bad section over here. I don't know if I'm gonna put these on screen. We'll see. But if I raise this hand, it's the bad one. I don't love it. It's probably the worst skill of this. This is the one you don't want to randomly roll if you're randomly rolling for them. But it's really the only bad one. The other ones are either okay or good, I'd say. Next is going to be Clamber. When the fighter climbs, the vertical distance is not halved. This one is useful for movement, and movement is important. So being able to get to the top of that tower to boop the button, that can be super useful. That can win you a scenario. It may not get you a kill, but most of the scenarios aren't kill based. So getting to the objective first, because you're not halving your distance going up multiple ladders if it's on the top of, like I use those oil derricks a lot in my terrain, then you're gonna get there first, and you're gonna get the button push first, and if you have that ability, it's gonna give you an advantage. So I like Clamber. I would put it in the... It's probably going to be an okay, maybe good. It depends on who you're putting it on. And that's what I'm going to say against all these. You could put this skill on one gang and it could be trash. And you could put it on another gang and it could be amazing. And so it depends on the gang. It depends on your play style. A lot of these depend. So if you don't agree with my ranking of them, that's okay. Totally get it, because it might be amazing for Escher, and I think things like Clamber would be because of their real high movement, but it might not be amazing for Goliaths, who have a movement of 4 anyways. Now it's going to allow them to actually use the ladder, hopefully, but when you're 2 inches slower every single time you move, that can add up, and it's not as good on a slower character, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Next is going to be dodge. If the fighter suffers a wound from ranged or close combat, I like that it's for both. On a 6, the attack is dodged and no further effect. I don't like things that are on a 6, but I guess the answer is it gives you a save, a 6+ save that is in addition to your most likely 6+, 5+ armor save. So it kind of gives you a secondary save or a chance to almost re-roll a 6, I guess is the way I think about it. With most people having flak armor on, you are going to get a double roll on that. So it turns a 16% into a 36%, whatever the odds are there. So it increases your chance with the reroll of being able to roll twice. Hopefully you can get a 6 on one of those 2 rolls and save yourself. And I like that it's for both shooting and melee. So not horrible. Again, I'll put dodge in the okay section. If it was on initiative or something like that, it would be amazing. But for Escher or something that has a good initiative roll. But instead, because it's on the 6, it's not as amazing. If it's on a template, they can move up to 2 inches to see if they're also hit. So if they land a 5-inch blast template on top of them, you're not going to be able to get outside of it because that blast template is 2.5 inches. And also they can't move within 1 inch of a fighter. So there are limitations to this, especially if it's a template or a blast weapon, a big blast weapon. But it's okay. We'll put it in the okay section in the middle. Mighty Leap, measure the distance of the gap the fighter wishes to leap across. Ignore the first 2 inches of the distance. So this means you can go further with your movement, because most of the time if you have to leap over something, you have to have enough movement to make it. So this kind of gives you more movement to do that because you ignore 2 inches. It also means that if it's a 2-inch gap or less, you don't even have to roll. You just make it automatically, which is nice, instead of rolling your initiative. And then all other rules apply. All other rules apply. This is okay. I use leap a lot with high initiative characters like Escher. I love to leap from building to building once I get up high to get into position to shoot down with my las guns. So it has its use with the specific gangs, and the 2 inches more is nice, especially if it's a long jump across. But it's okay. It's okay. It's probably great with Escher. It's okay normally, is what I'd say on that. Spring Up. This is by far the best one. This is the good. Well, this is the good section. I can already say that. If the fighter's pinned when they're activated, make an initiative check for them. If the check is passed, then the fighter can make a stand-up basic action for free. If the check is failed, the fighter may still stand up, but it costs 1 action as usual. So this is just a free roll to try to stand up and on your initiative. Now, most people's initiative is going to be a 4+ or better. So on a 50-50, you're able to stand up and not count as pinned, which means you can do that aim and shoot, which means you can do that charge. This could be critical on a champion or a leader to make them as efficient as possible, as much as possible, because pinning is winning. If you're pinning those other guys, you're gonna have action priority, you're gonna have the buildup of actions and be able to overwhelm that opponent by being able to aim and shoot to give you better percentage shots and to be able to make charges that you wanna make because they're pinned, you're not. For all those reasons, you do not want to be pinned, and this allows you to almost bypass pinning, especially if you have good initiative. And of course, this is known. I would say agility is known as an Escher skill. So this is important because it's an Escher skill, and I can't even think of anybody else who has agility right now. It's been too long since I've dealt with other gangs. I've been playing a whole lot of Escher, been playing a whole lot of Enforcers, been playing a whole lot of Genestealer Cult. Let me know in the comments if you want Escher or Genestealer Cult as the next review, because it's going to be one of those. Spring Up is next. So Mighty Leap, great, probably the best one. I'm sorry, not Mighty Leap. Spring Up, best skill in the agility tree. Next is going to be Sprint. If the fighter makes 2 move simple actions when activated, on the second one, it allows you to sprint, which lets you move double your move. So it kind of gives you 3 movements is the way I would think about it. So if you move and then you move again, you can double your movement on that second move. So you move triple speed. Again, movement is king. This allows you to get into position, to boop that scenario piece, to grab that casket that you needed to get to do the 50-50 on roll for the scenario, or, you know, get to whatever objective it is first. Great skill. I'm going to put that in the great also. That's and most of the time I would say they try and divide it up so there's 2 great, 2 okay, 2 bad. So in this one, there's really only maybe 1 bad, being, I would say, consider Catfall bad, and the rest are okay. And then Spring Up and Sprint are probably the good ones over here. Definitely with Spring Up being the best. All right, continuing on with Brawn. First, we have the Bull Charge. When a fighter makes close combat attacks as part of the charge double action, any weapons with the melee trait, they gain the knockback trait and are result at +1 strength. Amazing. Gives you the knockback. I know you guys love that. Knock those guys off the bridges as you charge up on them. Great tactic. It gives you +1 strength. That's what I love about it, because I initially take weapons that have +1 to hit instead of +1 strength, and then I will upgrade to those +1 strength weapons as I get better. And if you can bump up that stat in the weapon skill to a 2+ for like a champ or a leader, then you can, you know, pull this skill, and now you can get the strength weapon, the flail, or the trying to think of high strength axe, something like that that's cheaper. A power weapon, whips, things like that have +1 strength, and now they're +2 strength because you got the Bull Charge on it, and it gets really good. Now it's only during it's part of the charge action, so you can't use this all the time, but most of the time you want to take them out in that charge action. You don't want this combat to draw out to where you're fighting back and forth 2 or 3 rounds. So if anything, this helps you to ensure that you take that guy down and either kill him or coup de grace him so that he's done during the charge. Next is going to be Bulging Biceps. The fighter may wield an unwieldy weapon in 1 hand rather than usual 2. Unwieldy weapons still take up space of 2 weapons, so this one's definitely going to be a bad. Bull Charge good, Bulging Biceps bad. It would be better if it was almost more of like a stabilization system one, where you could allow you to move and shoot, say, a heavy weapon type situation. Like, I can't think of the piece of equipment right now. I want to say it's a stabilizer, but I don't think that's right. That would be what I think Bulging Biceps should be, which would make it good to switch it around that way. But it is what it is. I don't love it. I wouldn't take Bulging Biceps because it doesn't make it a 1-space weapon. It still takes up 2 spaces in your inventory, and it allows you to hold it with 1 hand. I can't think of a situation where that would help you, because it's not a melee weapon. It's not, I mean, I guess there might be unwieldy melee weapons like a hammer and stuff, but I'm thinking of it as like a heavy weapon thing. I don't know. I don't see the use in this. Maybe it's just me. If you guys know a use for this, please post in the comments. Maybe it's just my inexperience with this, but please, let's share it with the community if you guys know a good use for this, because maybe it's way better than I'm thinking of. Next is gonna be Crushing Blow. Before rolling to hit for the fighter's close combat attacks, the controlling player can nominate 1 die to make a Crushing Blow. This cannot be the die for the weapon with a sidearm trait. If the dice hits, the attack's strength and damage are increased by 1. Yes, this is good. Again, it buffs up the strength, it buffs up the damage, both great. And it's not, you'll see this in a lot of other GW games, and most of the time what they make you do is give up all your other attacks for 1 attack that does this. This doesn't do that, and that's why I like it, because you're not giving up all your other attacks and just doing 1 mega attack that has +1 strength, +1 damage. You still get to keep it, and you just, when I do this, I just use like a black die, and the other dice are the red dice from the set. So you just designate, hey, this is my Crushing Blow die, and if it hits, then it'll, you know, be buffed up that way. So that's why I like this one. Crushing Blow is definitely gonna be a good from the Brawn section. Next is going to be Headbutt. If the fighter is standing and engaged, they can make a following action: Headbutt Basic, pick an engaged enemy fighter and roll 2d6. If the results are equal to or higher than their toughness, they suffer a hit when the strength equals the fighter's strength +2, resolved at damage 2. So this gives you strength +2, damage 2, and you're rolling on 2d6 to beat their toughness. And most toughness in the game is 3 or 4. That's amazing. And it's, if it equals it even. So all you gotta do is roll a 3 on 2d6. That's pretty good odds. So this is a good ability, and it buffs up your strength. there's definitely, I'm trying to think of a reason why you wouldn't take this. I guess the only thing I can think of is this is one of those skills for a not combat person, as like a gotcha thing of like, oh, you got into close combat with me? Well, guess what? I'm gonna use Headbutt because you whiffed all your attacks, and now you didn't think this, you know, little tiny Escher was gonna be any good, but then she's using Headbutt on you. I don't know. I know they don't take Brawn as a primary, but just as something like that where you kind of come out of nowhere and headbutt this guy, and you go, all of a sudden you're strength 5, damage 2, and I just need to roll 2d6 and beat your toughness of your Goliath guy, and he's toughness 4, so he's got to roll a 4 or better, so roll 2 2s, and I equal their toughness. That's good. So I like this one because it's a cool attack, it works well, it gives you a nice strong hit, 2 damage. There's not much to not like about this. If there's any negatives, please post them down below. I don't see any, so I'm gonna put this in the good section. It may not be as amazing as something like Spring Up, but it's definitely a good attack. And I know there's some psychers that have it, stuff like that, and I like it for them for the same reason. You wouldn't think of this psyker as being a combat character, but then all of a sudden, oh yeah, by the way, she has Headbutt. So that's probably the main reason I would see that happening. It's kind of that surprise attack that they weren't expecting. Now, Goliath, something like that, I get it. But you might have other things you'd rather do with a Corpse Grinder Cultist or like a Goliath guy with a Renderizer than a Headbutt, is my thing of, you probably wouldn't take it on them because they have better things they can do damage with. Next is going to be Hurl. If the fighter's standing and engaged, you can make a following into action. Pick an enemy that's engaged and in base contact with you, or if they're seriously injured and within 1 inch of the fighter. Again, why wouldn't you just coup de grace them there? I don't know. Make an initiative check. If you do, you can throw them D3 in the direction of your choice. So I guess you could throw them off a building. Maybe you could consider, if you play it this way, throw them off the map so they're out of action by throwing them off the map. Or if there's, the problem is that it takes good initiative, and most of the guys who take bronze skills don't have great initiative. So I don't love this one. I'm gonna put it in the okay section for that. It seems okay. I bet there's better things you can do. Again, throwing them off a building, throwing them off a bridge, that's probably what you'd want to use it for, and it's fun thematically, story-wise, instead of trying to fight them to the death and get to the button you need to push. You just chuck them off. Now they're at the bottom of the, back onto the bottom of the terrain, and they'd have to climb all the way up and stop you before you boop the button or whatever and win the scenario. So maybe you could use it that way. Iron Jaw is the final one here. Fighter uses the fighter's toughness is treated as being 2 higher than normal when another fighter makes an unarmed attack against them. I don't like this. This is like that situation we talked about when you run out of ammo and you got that one guy just running around trying to punch people in the face. That's a bad situation for that guy punching. You don't want to plan on the enemy having this situation where they're running around trying to punch you because they've ran out of bolter rounds or whatever else is their good weapon, and now they're trying to punch you in the face. Don't plan on that. Don't take this skill. This is a bad one. I wouldn't take Iron Jaw because who's running around trying to punch people in the face? Other than maybe like a brute that's unarmed, I guess you could think about that might save you from a brute, but that's a specific situation, and I wouldn't take a skill based on a specific scenario situation, like it being dark or it being one of the sneak scenarios or something like that. Don't take it because you're only going to use that once every 3rd or 4th, maybe 5th scenario. Take one you can use every scenario. So I don't like that one for this reason. How many times are you gonna get punched in the face? And hopefully you're good enough that you will either A, punch back, or B, just whip out your renderizer and just cut the guy apart. So I don't love Iron Jaw. All right, moving on to combat. Where's combat at? There we go. First is gonna be Combat Master. The fighter never suffers penalties to their hit rolls for interference. So if you've got guys around you, you're not going to have negatives on that. This is like, what is it called in Bloodbowl? Guard, I think, which gets annoying as hell if this is a melee gang versus another melee gang that wants to clump up and just make that big mosh pit in the middle of guys fighting. This can be amazing because you're never going to get any negatives. But again, that's kind of a specific situation, and this one might be. If you got a bunch of Corpse Grinder Cults, a bunch of Goliaths, Genestealers with a bunch of aberrants or something like that, where you're going to have this melee combat that's guaranteed most games, depending on where you're playing and who you're playing with. This might be a good skill. So I'm going to say it's good because of that. It's not great though. It's not amazing, but it's definitely a good skill. It's kind of dependent on take it if you need it for if you're finding yourself getting in a lot of melee combats. Next is going to be counterattack. When the fighter makes a reaction, attacks in close combat, they roll one additional attack for each of the attacker's attacks that failed to hit. This one is scary also because it requires the enemy to whiff all of their attacks and you survive, and then you get to attack back. Now it's great when it works, but if they don't whiff that attack, you're gonna get cut down like a dog, and that's gonna be bad. So for that reason, if I don't like the fact that you're waiting, you're hoping that they completely whiff, which does happen. I do it all the time. With my whip guy, it gets tough. All right, next we'll move on to Disarm. Any weapons with the melee trait used by the fighter also gain the Disarm trait. I really like this one. If the weapon already has this trait, then the target will be disarmed to a natural 5 or a 6 instead of the usual 6. So that is the key part right here. You need to take this if you already are taking disarm weapons. So you're going to take that. I think an axe has disarm. Most of the axes do that. So instead of that having it go off on a 6, you can take this on a 5. That gives you about a 33% chance of getting it. That's good. Because of that would be the only reason I take this, is because if I'm already using axes that have disarm or another weapon that has disarm, I'm going to stack this on there to give myself a better chance of getting that. Because being able to not take away their ability to attack back with those double chain blades, stuff like that, when they got all the nasty weapons, being able to run up and disarm them gives you that chance that if you hurt them but don't kill them in the melee combat, something like that, you can survive the next round and hopefully be able to take initiative first, strike first, finish them off. So this is good, but only good if you stack it. Otherwise, I wouldn't take it just to roll it on a 6. Don't take things that you get on 6s, is what I always say on all of these. Next is going to be Parry. The fighter can parry attacks as though they were carrying a weapon with the Parry trait. If they already have one or more weapons with this trait, or 2, if you might be a Genestealer cultist, they can parry one additional attack. I guess 2, 3. Let's say 3, if you're a Genestealer cultist, then you could parry an additional attack. So you can get a Genestealer cultist could get 1 for each arm, that's 3, and then 1 for the parry. I have a guy that does this. I have a chainsword wielding leader that I really love. He sometimes gets murdered horribly, but having that parry ability to parry attacks, I really like it to make him more survivable against melee armies, so that I'm not worried about running in there and whiffing hard. I can still parry those attacks and make them re-roll them. Now, if they're hitting on a 2+, he's probably gonna murder me still, because it makes you re-roll successful attacks. But if I can make him re-roll 4 successful attacks and he's hitting on a 3 or a 4, he may only get 1 or 2, hopefully, if things go right, statistically, and then it's more survivable. He may only wound me, or he may only have to roll or get to roll 1 injury die, and we'll see how that goes. So this is a survivability thing. I like it. I like stacking it when I can take 3 other weapons with parry, 3 power swords, 3 chain swords, stuff like that. So this is a stackable ability. You may not want to take it just because it only allows you to parry 1 if it's just by itself. Next is going to be Rain of Blows. This fighter treats the fight action as a simple action rather than a basic action, so you can do 2 fight actions in a round. I'm torn on this one because hopefully you would kill them in the first fight action, because otherwise they're going to get to strike back and things might go wrong and you may not get to take a second simple action fight. But for that reason, I would rather take a parry or a step aside over Rain of Blows, but I know a lot of people suggest it as like, hey, you a combat guy? Take Rain of Blows. Yes, especially if you're going against Juves, gangers, things that can't hit you back, that's good. But the thing you want is you want those abilities that, like the next one coming up, that's going to make them miss those attacks. So this is kind of a second skill you'd take, because first I take this next one called Step Aside. If the fighter is hit in close combat, the fighter can attempt to step aside. Make an initiative check for them. If the check is passed, the attack misses. Awesome. Escher, my double whip girl, she can run up to a Juve or a ganger and get her attacks in. Maybe she totally whiffs, and you know, then they charge in and get in combat with me during their activation. Now she can, usually they're only going to get one attack regular, one attack for the charge. If they just happen to have two close combat weapons, I'm probably not going to go against that guy anyways. I'm going to go against the guy with the las gun or something, auto gun. So they'll have their auto gun attack or their fists attacks. So that's two attacks. I can step aside one of them with a good, pretty easy initiative check. Now they might get one on a, let's say probably 4+, 5+ for a Juve. That's pretty good odds of keeping myself safe, because then they got to roll a wound, and then I get an armor check. There's a lot of rolling that has to go successful for them before they get that. Then you add in Rain of Blows to where when you go again, you can attack the first time. If you jack it up, you can attack a second time, make sure that ganger or Juve goes down. So that's probably how I'd use Step Aside and Rain of Blows. I like Step Aside, and that's what I put on a lot of my close combat Escher, because they got good initiative and allows me to negate pretty much on a 2+ on most of them, the first attack of any guys attacking me back. All right, let's go over the cunning skills last in part 1 here, and that's, first one's gonna be Backstab. This is gonna give you a second +1 if you already have Backstab weapons. Usually there's gonna be smaller knives, combat knives, things like that you may have with that Juve that's running around just hoping to get behind the characters, run up, backstab. It usually gives you +1 strength. This will give you +2 strength with the stack, or give you backstab to other regular weapons, which also can be good because a lot of times you can charge in and from the side, from the back, not their front arc obviously, but get the backstab ability by getting on the side of the back, while they're fighting someone else, something like that, and it gives you +1 strength. +1 strength is good to make sure you get that wound. This is a good skill. I'm gonna put it at a okay. It's okay. It could be, well, because it's gonna be, I would stick this on a Juve or something like that. There's other stuff I would take with leaders and champions in the cunning section, and so unfortunately this one would get kind of pushed aside and put on the lesser characters that way. Next is gonna be Escape Artist. When a fighter makes a retreat action, add 2 to the result. So it's getting out of close combat. That's not horrible. In addition, if they're captured at the end of battle, then and if they're equipped with the skin blade, they get an additional 1 to the result to see if they can escape. This is very situational. I don't like it because of that. I like the retreat part, but again, there's, unfortunately for cunning skills, there's way better stuff. So this one would probably be in the bad, because half of it depends on capturing, and you don't want to plan on your guys getting captured. Don't give them a skill because they might get captured. Hopefully that never happens. So hopefully you never use that skill, which is not a good skill to pick, is a skill you hope to never use. And also you have to have an equipment piece just to use that skill thing. So don't get this. Probably my least favorite on this one. Next is going to be Evade. If an enemy targets the fighter in a ranged attack, if they're not in cover or full cover, they gain a -1 to hit roll at short range, and a -2 if it's at long range. And so this is pretty much free cover. This is, if they're running out in the middle of the street, they could get a -1 or a -2 just for being so evadey that it's hard to hit them. That's awesome. I love that. It allows you to not have to move cover to cover. It allows you to move where you need to, so next turn you can get that charge. Next turn you can run up and be standing kind of out in the middle of nowhere because that casket unfortunately got placed in the middle of a cornfield and it's no cover around. Well, now this one guy is your expert at running out in the middle of the open space. kill zone and at least getting some sort of protection. So that's what I would use this guy. This is your specialist who runs out in the middle of the kill zone because he has auto cover. He has either a -1 or -2 if you're shooting at him, even when he's not in cover, and that's great. It doesn't stack with cover, which is good. That would make it way too good, but it does work when he's out of cover. So it's automatic cover all the time. Really good skill. I like this a lot. I would maybe take this as a secondary skill once you get some of the other good stuff, or maybe just give this to one specific guy or two if you want to have a backup one of them, so that they can do this for you during a scenario. Next is going to be Infiltrate. If the fighters should be set up in battle, they can be placed to one side. Immediately before the start of the first round, the controlling player may set them up anywhere on the battlefield that is not visible to the enemy and not within 6 inches of them. This is amazing for that close combat champion, close combat leader, that you don't need to stick with your troops and keep them next to people to do group activations or something like that. These are just your murderers that all of a sudden they're in the enemy's backfield, behind them, close to them because they're going to be within 6 inches most of the time if you can stay out of sight. Scary. And also you get to see where they place all their guys first. Hopefully you got more guys like I've been telling you to do, and also now you have a guy in their backfield just ready to pick off. If they stick that one, Juve who's going to be a flanker Juve and go around and he's going to be away from everybody else, now he's a sitting duck because he's stuck with a champion with 2 chainswords ready to just mow him down on turn 1, and he's got no support from anybody else because he wasn't expecting to have that guy pop up and show him how it works. So use it that way. Use it to continue to build your advantage men wise, so you have more fighters, which means you have more activations, which means you can see what they're doing during a turn and then have 2, 3, 4 guys, hopefully more and more as you continue to take guys out, that can do things unhindered at the end of the round, and he gets no goes after your guy goes. You just get to go move guy after guy after guy, which kind of gives you automatic group activations at the end of the turn. So you want that man advantage, and this Infiltrate will definitely help you get it. Next is going to be Lilo. When a fighter is prone, enemy fighters cannot target them with range attacks unless they're within attacking weapon the short range, and weapons that do not have short range are unaffected by this rule. I hate this one because even there's rules in there. I can't think of what it's called right now, but it's when you're prone next to cover anyways, you can't be targeted. I'll try and put it on the screen here, but it's with a page reference. But this skill is almost useless because there's rules in the game that already do this. So if they're anywhere next to terrain, you're not going to be able to target them anyways. So this is a horrible skill. I don't like Lilo. It seems like it's the skill that GW just always like, oh crap, this guy needs a skill, but he's already pretty good and we probably overcosted him anyways. So just give him Lilo. So I don't like that they do that. It's not a good skill. This is not the one you want to roll if you're randomly rolling for cunning skills, because most of them are pretty good except for Escape Artists, but there's some real duds in here. So Lilo, bad. So it's going over here in the bad section. Let's remove it. There we go. Over here in the bad section, and Escape Artists, both in the bad section. Finally, we got Overwatch. If the fighter is standing and active, and he has a ready marker on them, then he can interrupt a visible enemy fighter's action as soon as it is declared, but before it's carried out. We've talked about this before. So if they move out into the street and then they're about to move again to move to that cover, you say, hold on, before you start that second activation, I'm going to take a shot at you with my guy. He's active. He still has his activation marker. He is going to attack you and hopefully just take him out right there as he's standing in the street. That's the whole point of this. Most of the time you're going to put it on a sniper character, maybe a plasma gun character, somebody who has that longer shot rifle who can cover a big section of the board with their front arc and just be ready to go the second you see them step out. And the thing is players will forget that you have this, so they'll move out of cover and get taken out because of it. So be ready with your Overwatch. Really good skill. Probably one of my favorite of the cunning skills, other than maybe Infiltrate. This is the one I use the most. I don't use Infiltrate as much because I don't have as many melee armies. I have a lot more shooting armies, so this is going to be my go-to skill as I'm starting to I keep saying armies. I'm going to use this in my games to make sure that I'm doing a good job in getting the shots off whenever those guys move out of cover. So that's how I'm going to use that. That's probably my favorite one, definitely is Overwatch for the cunning section. So that's going to be in the good section, definitely. All right, guys, that's all I got for part 1 of the skill section. Next week, we'll go over the other set of them. But we got some news I want to cover real quick before we end this video. Okay, so let's talk about the new Escher that they have in the Underhaven format. So first we have the Death Maidens. That sounds like they're going to be champions per what you read in there. They have the Poison Blood trait, which allows them to reroll 1s for their Toxic Weapon trait weapons. So things like the Needle Rifle, Needle Pistol, Stiletto Knives, things like that have those weapons. They also have a Venom Claw weapon that they have with them. That's a special weapon for them. It has AP -2, Entangle, which is good. It's kind of like a flail, and Toxin, which makes sense. They kind of have like whip hair, or at least some sort of a whip headpiece on that has like weird spiky whip bits coming off of it. So that was my first thing of like, do they use these whip bits or for something? And maybe that's where the Entangle comes from, is the Venom Claws. I don't know if that's what they're saying there. They have some pictures of them, which is pretty much pictures we've seen already. And then they have a new Bounty Hunter and House Agents. The first one's a House Agent called, what is she called? Immortal Death Maiden, Necrona. Necrona cannot be coup de grace. She does not treat an out-of-action result, or she treats it as a serious injury instead. Pretty much you have to knock her out by taking her to toughness 0, because if she's suffering from a serious injury in her next turn during the recovery phase, she'll just get a flesh wound as normal, so she just automatically gets to stand back up and get back in action. You don't have to roll for it. And that's going to make her pretty tough. Now, she seems to be a house agent, so it's going to be very specific in a way to get her by joining and making an alliance with somebody, it sounds like, but she seems tough. Now, the problem is we have no idea what the points are, so unfortunately, because they point stuff crazy in this game, they'll be like, oh, yeah, you have to take her down to toughness 0. She has good attack. She'll be like a good Death Maiden character. So she's gonna be 700 points or something crazy. Unfortunately, we'll have to jack with the point level, I'm sure, a little bit on this, because I have a feeling it's gonna be way too much. But it sounds like she's gonna be good. She's gonna be scary. She's gonna be good. But because of that, she's probably gonna be overcosted. Let's see. Next is gonna be what is they call this one? Betty Banshee. Her face got torn off by a Zerker, so now she has all these Voxlings stabbed into her face. And she kind of looks like Medusa, and she has the Banshee Whale ability. So fighters, when the fighter activates within 6 inches of Betty Banshee, they must take a willpower check. If the check is failed, they can only make a single action during their activation. Good, because it could keep you from getting charged. So it can kind of pin people if they fail their willpower checks, but this one's weird. In addition, fighters may not make reaction attacks against Betty Banshee if she made a charge double action during her activation. That's probably the best part of the Banshee Whale, is that you won't get reaction attacks back. So potentially you could charge a character that's already activated, try to hurt them. If you don't, because it's like a butcher or something, like a Corpse Grinder Cult leader or something, you get your first turn, maybe get a wound off of them, hopefully, something like that. And then if you win initiative, go your second turn and try to take them out with a secondary attack before they can attack back, and you can finish them off. That's kind of how I'd probably use this with the Banshee Whale. Let me know what you guys think. Again, she sounds good. She seems to be a bounty hunter. I'm more of a Hive Scum person myself. I don't like the bounty hunters because they cost so dang much. I would love to see another Hive Scum come out of this book. I'm sure there'll be something in there, hopefully, but we'll see. So what do you guys think about these? What do you think they're going to be costed? What's your guess? For this girl, maybe a little bit about 120 points is my guesstimate. We'll see if it holds up. Stamp the date on here, and I'm going to say 120 for that. For the Necrona girl, she's gonna be like 400 points. That's that just 400 just pops into my head as like probably what she's gonna cost, which is gonna be ridiculous. She's not gonna be worth that, but that's what I would guess they would probably stick her at because it's so hard to kill her. We'll see. So that's pretty much what they got for the new news for us. I'm excited about getting this book. They said end of this quarter, which means like end of July. So hopefully in the next 2-3 weeks, this will get released. We'll see. Before I leave you, I wanted to talk to you guys about some other things I'm working on. I want to know what you guys think. I'm going to stick with the tactics. Don't worry. Necromunda tactics aren't going anywhere. But I'm also doing Aeronautica Imperialis, and it doesn't seem like there's any tactics videos for that. Imagine that. Specialist game is not getting any love. So if you guys are interested in that, Aeronautica Imperialis is much less tactical, I guess is the way I would say it after playing a few games during July. There's going to be tactics to it, but I played a whole lot of Star Wars Armada and a whole lot of X-Wing, and this, unfortunately, Aeronautica Imperialis doesn't strike me as tactical as those games, I guess is what I'm saying, because most of the time when you move, you can't just go left. You can go right and left, which opens up almost too many options, I would say. So I have weird feelings about this game, but I want to know what you guys think. If you want some tactics videos on Aeronautica Imperialis, let me know. I may consider it as kind of a secondary thing to do. Also, I do role-playing games. I'm going to probably do a Vampire the Masquerade, because the 5th edition just came out for my birthday party. I'm going to do a storyteller for that as a one-off. Just to have a good time with my friends. I also run a Rogue Trader role-playing group when it's not COVID. So unfortunately, that's all the role-playing game stuff has stopped, much like most of the gaming stuff has stopped, other than small games of Necromunda with one friend. So let me know if you guys want any news on that, if you guys are interested in RPG stuff. I know there's a lot of people who already do those, but Aeronautica Imperialis is probably the one I'm considering doing some more videos on, since there's nothing on YouTube, which is BS. I'm sorry. I apologize for YouTube that we can't make tactics videos over these specialist games, but I'm considering doing it. Let me know what you think. That's all I got, guys. Static out.